Now, I don't know, you've talked extensively about the CBN's letter, but I do not know if you've seen the reply of the NNPC to that particular letter, and whether it raises the question of the workings of the NNPC for you. Do you also agree that that is how the NNPC functions, or you're not very knowledgeable on the workings of the NNPC?
I've read the NNPC reply. Of course, I said from point one, I've read the letter written by CBN to NNPC. Now, if one of the allegations NNPC made is that CBN is playing politics with something as weighty as the revenue of the country, whether we like it or not, 80% of the revenue of the country still comes from oil. Therefore, all of us must be interested in what happens, must be interested in what's going on in the oil and gas industry, because indeed it affects the entire gamut of our economic life. Without it, you can't even run the budget. Without revenue from oil, we can't talk about development. As it is now, it may not be right, but that's what it is. Now, one fundamental question they raise about the workings of the NNPC. The NNPC is not a lawless organization, and therefore it must work within the confines of the law. Now, take the issue of pre-shipment. Now, pre-shipment inspection report. Before you export anything out of this country, the Pre-Shipment Inspection Act of 1996, or as severally amended by the National Assembly, requires that there are some documents you must file, and the CBN has custody of these documents. And for me, the most important issue is not who is basically right or who is wrong. It's the fact that for once, we are beginning to question the opaque transactions of the NNPC. For once, we are beginning to call to the attention of the Nigerian people certain fundamental issues. I don't agree with NNPC at all that CBN is playing politics. It's simply doing its function as the custodian of our commonwealth, as the chief economic advisor of government, and as the banker to government and people of Nigeria, and banker to NNPC.
Well, I didn't quite read the part of playing politics, but what the NNPC seems to be suggesting is that this is as a result of misunderstandings of the workings of the NNPC. I'm just wondering how probable it is that, the CBN misunderstands, or isn't it possible that truly this is born out of a misunderstanding of the workings of the NNPC?
Whereas I might partially agree with you, there's one fundamental problem. You are acknowledging the fact that every month the two agencies and other agencies of government meet in what you call pre-fact meeting, technical section of fact, Federation Account Allocation Committee. They meet in pre-fact, they meet in technical committee of fact, and of course they meet in fact. They have opportunity of reconciling data, reconciling figures every month. The question then is, what do they do in that meeting? Now, CBN had an initial raised question that NNPC by right ought not to maintain several accounts outside the CBN. Now, if you also look at our constitution, the law is very clear that every revenue should come to the federation account before distribution, and so there is no justification why we must maintain different accounts outside the CBN, outside the federation account. It's obviously unconstitutional. Something must be wrong with that.
It's privy to every account that they've opened.
Yeah, they obviously see from the letter of CBN, from the content of the letter, CBN clearly denied that. One of the issues is calling to question is that the president should mandate a committee to investigate the other accounts, especially the salary accounts outside the country, being maintained by NNPC. The letter was very clear on that.
Well, anyway, I think one issue I wanted us to look at the response from the GMD of NNPC, and which is very, very key here. Well, they say NNPC is in charge of just one stream of these 5 accounts, and he went further to name them. He talked about equity crude, the royalty oil, tax oil, and volume for the third-party financing, and NPDC equity volume, 5 of them, and he actually for the very first time stated where each one is remitted to, and he said, well, in all of this, NNPC is statutorily required to remit only one stream of liftings, that is the equity crude. With this explanation, we thought by now this would have been over.
Suleiman, thank you very much. Like I said earlier, for me, the key achievement of the CBN later is not for me to evaluate who is right or who is wrong. Now, we've been asking for these explanations all along. There's been questions all along. How come NNPC has not thrown its books open to the public before now? It's not enough to have audited accounts in your shelf. People had questioned the basis for the audit a long time ago. I think for me, the most important thing is the fact that NNPC must conduct its business transparently, in a very transparent manner, because it is not a private company. It is a public company with Nigerian people having 100% equity.
Well, anyway, I think from what you just said, well, I think most Nigerians would understand, but, well, being the chairman of Petroleum Downstream in the House, are you saying before this correspondence between CBN and the presidency, you've not been in touch with the NNPC?
But very good question, Suleiman. You will recall that the National Assembly had raised a lot of issues with the NNPC, and we're still raising issues. And this has been in the public domain, and it's not like it's been a private thing between we and NNPC. We've been raising fundamental issues about how NNPC conducts its business, and every year it's been an issue, and yet it's not been sorted out. We have hoped, or we still hope, that the Petroleum Industry Bill will substantially address those issues. And so it is not an issue of we not following up or that we've not been in touch with the NPC. We cannot in any way deny that we've been in touch with the NPC, because we have a statutory responsibility to oversight what they're doing, and we're doing that effectively. But mind you, our responsibility ends with exposing corruption. Somebody, and that is the executive arm of government, is expected to take action. It's their responsibility to implement our reports. We've had many reports which have not been implemented, or which have been kept in some shelf, and so nobody should blame the National Assembly, because to the extent of exposing corruption, we've discharged our responsibility. It's somebody's responsibility to ensure that they execute our reports, recommendations, and all the other things we do.
Yeah, two things.
We are aware of several probes that the National Assembly has embarked on, and several recommendations we have made. Several reports we've turned in.
Well, you talked about audited accounts. You've also talked about exposing corruption. The audited accounts, the NNPC says that they actually give you copies in the National Assembly. Have you had any issues with them whatsoever?
Very, very true. If we've not had issues, we've had issues with audited reports of NNPC, and we're still having issues with audited reports of NNPC. And if you recall, in his latest report, raised a lot of fundamental questions on NNPC's audited report. I'm sure you avail yourself a copy of the NATI report, and I'm sure you will understand what I'm talking about.
Mr. Peterside, this letter has generated quite a lot of things, and we've been going back and forth about competence, oversight, reports, and corruption. But it paints a picture out there that the members of the National Assembly, some may have been compromised or may not have been compromised, but that they're not doing what they should do, because you are the custodians of the law, and you have what it takes to ensure that these bodies of government are staying in line with their functions and the reasons why they were set up.
That's absolutely not true. You recall, like I said earlier, the mandate of the National Assembly stops at exposing corruption, calling attention to leakages in the system, wastages. The question is, have we been doing that? My answer is yes. Have we called attention to corruption? Have we called attention to leakages? Have we called attention to wastages? We have continuously done that on behalf of the Nigerian people.